decisions. He bypassed Congress, potentially violated the War Powers Resolution. I believe this is certainly a clear violation of international law at the very least.
Why didn't anybody say nothing to Barack Obama when he said these things? Why did Sonny Hostin and the Democrats not come out and say he violated the Constitution or he violated the law? He should be put in prison after he said this stuff and he made these decisions. This video is brought to you by TatumStore.com. TatumStore.com, ladies and gentlemen. Tis the season for 4th of July. So get your 4th of July merch. Make sure you put USA 20 to get 20% off. We got the brand new Trump. This Uncle Trump. This shirt's so cool, man. I cannot wait for them to finish printing mine so I can wear it and show you. But that is an incredible shirt. I think some people will like this one. I love this one. It's very simple. And this one right here is incredible as well. Nobody's making merch as cool as the Officer Tatum store. They're just not doing it. So put in USA 20. Also, we have 2-day shipping available. We negotiated a deal with FedEx to get us incredible pricing on 2-day shipping. So that's all we do is 2-day shipping. Just so you know, I want everybody to be clear. 2 days after the product has been fulfilled. So it takes about 24 to 48 hours for the product to be fulfilled. And then the shipping will be 2-day shipping. There's nobody on the internet, unless they work with Amazon, to get you a product that's going to be fulfilled at the volume that we do in less than 24 hours. Now, some people do get their product less than 24 hours, but just as a rule of thumb, give us about 24 hours to fulfill, 24 to 48 hours to fulfill, and then we will ship it to you in 2 days. All right, ladies and gentlemen, get your merch today. Let's get to some juicy stuff, right? Because I want to talk about, I'm going to start with Caroline Leavitt. Then we're going to go through the methodical process of this. The Democrats are trying to act like, maybe I won't go to Caroline Leavitt. Hold on a second. The Democrats are trying to act like Donald Trump somehow violated the Constitution or committed a war crime by doing what he did. Now, I can read this at another time and you guys can read it too, but it's called the War Power Act. And Donald Trump, through the War Powers Act, has the right, without congressional approval, for him to do what he did. That's why nothing is ever going to come of this. But you got to be the R word for you to somehow think that makes sense. Now, the Democrats are trying to use this as a campaign slogan, just like they did the illegals, but clearly that didn't work out. You see how that's been going? So they need to find a new reason to be mad at Donald Trump.
Let me just put this in some context here. Negotiations were moving forward, and I give credit to the Trump administration. They were helping bring the parties together, negotiating to keep Iran from developing a nuclear weapon. Benjamin Netanyahu has never wanted to rely on negotiations. He has wanted to engage in military actions. He saw his opportunity. He shoved the president aside and the president's negotiation and moved forward, and then turned around and managed to pull Donald Trump in, who in turn seems to be working hard to pull the entire United States into war in Iran. The Constitution is clear. Only Congress can declare war. We all understand there are exceptions when our troops are at risk, when our homeland is at risk, when Americans are at risk, but none of those apply in this case. What Donald Trump has done is unconstitutional, and we're going to have a vote this week in the United States Senate on the War Powers Act, and this is our opportunity. It only takes a simple majority to reel back in Donald Trump and make clear to the world that the United States is not going to war against Iran.
House Intelligence Committee, one of the members of the so-called Gang of Eight, said he found out about the strikes on Twitter. Listen to this. Listen to what he said.
I learned about this strike last night on Twitter, which, as you point out, is an uncomfortable thing for the ranking member of the Intelligence Committee, particularly given the fact that the whole premise here is that something changed, right? That, Prime Minister Netanyahu made reference to new intelligence. There was some mention of it this morning. So bad enough that we weren't informed, but, unconstitutional that we didn't have the opportunity to debate and speak as the representatives of the people on what is one of the more consequential foreign policy things that this country has done in a long time.
Now, we're hearing incredibly optimistic views coming out of the White House as far as how long this can hold and what this is going to look like. That obviously still remains to be seen on the implementation side of this, and waiting to see if the firing does stop and if Iran and Israel do both agree to this. Because, speaking of the fluidity of the situation, it was just 24 hours ago that President Trump himself was suggesting a regime change in Iran was a possibility. And obviously right before that, having the United States strike Iran. And so, yes, there have been a lot of phone calls going back and forth. In part, this has to do with Iran's limited response earlier, where they fired on a U.S. base in Qatar, but there were no casualties. We know that they did give a heads up that they were going to be firing on U.S. bases without exactly specifying which ones. But that is the question here, is if the United States felt that it did not need to respond to the Iranian retaliation, did that create the space for this? That is what we've been hearing from administration officials. And so the question is whether or not this still holds for the next few hours.
Caitlin, I've just been given word that Iran, according to a diplomat who briefed CNN, Iran has agreed to the ceasefire. So this is significant. I just want to try to learn some more information as soon as we get it about that. But if that is the case, that's incredibly significant, because that is, we were waiting, we had not heard from Iran, we had not heard from Israel. All we were going on so far has been the president's social media post, which was some 2 hours ago. So again, that is the first indication we have that Iran has agreed to this.
And here is some of the reasons. And I will have Caroline Levy go first, and then we're going to show. Now, let me do Obama. Let me have Obama go first, because I want this to be very clear. Why didn't anybody say nothing to Barack Obama when he said these things? Why did Sonny Hostin and the Democrats not come out and say he violated the Constitution or he violated the law? He should be put in prison after he said this stuff and he made these decisions. Roll the clip.
Today I authorized 2 operations in Iraq. Targeted airstrikes to protect our American personnel. Last night, on my orders, America's armed forces began strikes against ISIL targets in Syria. Today, the American people give thanks for the extraordinary service of our men and women in uniform. Today, I authorized the armed forces of the United States to begin a limited military action in Libya. That action has now begun. Make no mistake, this is a difficult mission, and it will remain difficult for some time. It's going to take time to dislodge these terrorists, especially from urban areas. If the United States has Al-Qaeda, Bin Laden, top-level lieutenants in our sights, and Pakistan is unable or unwilling to act, then we should take them out.
Sure, that's unconstitutional, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that unconstitutional?
Hell yeah.
Oh, when Barack Obama did it, nobody said anything.
No.
Let's go to Caroline Levy real quick. We're going to go to Charlemagne. We'll go to Fetterman, and then we're going to play Sonny Hostin, the clip that you guys have been waiting to listen to. Roll the clip.
So as this operation takes place, Democrats said they were not told about it. They were left in the dark, and they said usually there's bipartisan calls for this, and they didn't know about it. Here is Republican Thomas Massey.
We haven't been briefed. They should have called us all back. And frankly, we should have debated this War Powers resolution that Ro Khanna and I offered instead of staying on vacation and doing fundraisers and saying, oh, well, the president's got this under control. We're going to cede our constitutional authority.
Should you have called everybody back?
First of all, we did make bipartisan calls. Thomas Massey and the Democrats, he should be a Democrat because he's more aligned with them than with the Republican Party. We're given notice. The White House made calls to congressional leadership. They were bipartisan calls. In fact, Hakeem Jeffries couldn't be reached. We tried him before the strike, and he didn't pick up the phone, but he was briefed after, as well as Chuck Schumer was briefed prior to the strike. So this notion that CNN ran with at the White House did not give a heads up to Democrats is just completely false. In fact, both Senator Schumer's office and CNN had to retract that story last night because it was a blatant lie, and we showed them the timestamps from those phone calls. But I want to add something to Thomas Massey's false point. The White House was not obligated to call anyone because the president was acting within his legal authority under Article 2 of the Constitution as Commander-in-Chief of the President of the United States. We gave these calls as a courtesy, and the Democrats are lying about this because they can't talk about the truth of the success of that operation and the success of our United States military and the success of this president and this administration in doing something that past administrations, Democrats too, have only dreamed about.
Yeah.
She cooking. She cooking. She my favorite, by the way. There have been other great spokespersons for the White House, but Caroline Leavitt is on another level. I think so. I think they just get better. If somebody can get better than Caroline Leavitt, I'm going to pass out. Caroline Leavitt was right on point. What are y'all talking about? They lied. Well, first of all, Trump don't have to say nothing to you, fool. What do you got? We need to call back all of Congress for them to fly in. Okay, let's do that. It take a week, and then they argue about it. That's 2 weeks, 3 weeks. That's why government don't get sugar, honey, iced tea done. Not a doggone thing. If y'all got to come and talk about it and get in a circle and cry and debate and do it, no, man, we just gotta take care of business. That's why we voted for the man. He's the commander in chief. If he believes it is right, then he need to do what he needs to do. None of them said that they need to do this when Barack Obama's in office, and I can say that 200 million times. Let's go to Charlemagne real quick. And he's you know, I don't really like Charlemagne that much, but sometimes he fall and slip on his head and bump it and say something that makes sense. You see how weak he is. This dude right here, I think he closeted. Why you say he closeted? This dude he say some of the weakest, most feminine, emasculated stuff I've ever heard in my life. He acts like he's an emasculated man. And then look behind him. Love is love. If you don't get that, all right, let me stop. Go ahead.
This is one of those times where politicians sound like hypocrites because Mark Kelly is right. Presidents should get congressional approval, but there have been a bunch of presidents who have ordered strikes without congressional approval. Barack Obama did it against Libya. Joe Biden ordered strikes in Iraq and Syria without congressional approval. Bill Clinton did it to Kosovo, I think you pronounce it. So presidents ordering military action without congressional approval has become pretty routine. So is it always a thing when they do it? I'm just asking. I don't know.
No. Well, this is where those articles of impeachment come up, and that's why House Democrat Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she actually says that President Trump's decision to strike Iran could lead to impeachment.
So why didn't I'm just saying? So why didn't it lead to impeachment for everybody else? Like when Barack Obama did it, when Biden did it.
But it has, not that it necessarily. Well, the people in Congress or congressional members will call for it. Does it necessarily mean that they'll move forward?
They only want Trump out of office. Trump's doing stuff they couldn't get done.
There have been times in the past
it makes them feel like
these
lesser than
congressional members have called for impeachment of the president because of the military actions or actions that they've taken with the military without having that congressional.
It hasn't been this much backlash.
Yeah, I don't even remember hearing about it during the Joe Biden administration.
No,
but I guess that's because the way Trump has been moving, but we haven't heard about it when Obama did it. We didn't hear about it when Biden did it.
I do remember when Obama did it. When Obama did it, I do remember, people in Congress saying he needed congressional approval and they were making it a thing. I don't remember the Biden thing at all. I don't remember that even making a headline.
I don't recall Biden, but people were very upset about the way that he. That went without that. People were very upset about the way that he withdrew from Afghanistan. I mean, that was certainly a thing as well. I mean, they were it was a thing.
Yeah, the only reason I know about Biden because I read an article on NBC News last night that was literally about this. The headline was "Presidents ordering military action without congressional approval has become routine," and it talked about Biden citing Article Number 2 in the Constitution, which makes the president commander in chief, and I guess basically saying he don't need congressional approval, and that's when he ordered the strikes in Iraq and Syria.
Yeah, you don't need. If they wanted to change it, Congress get off their ashy elbows and do something about it. Congress don't do nothing but sit around and complain and argue with each other all day. They don't get nothing done. I'm not saying that in totality. It just appears to be that way at times, that they don't get anything done. If you don't think the president should have these actions, why don't you vote on it? Why don't y'all get a resolution going? They don't do nothing. They doing nothing for illegal aliens or against or for. They do nothing. They literally, when one person's in power, the other side don't want to cooperate. When one side in power, the other side don't want to cooperate. I see why Republicans don't want to cooperate, because the Democrats are evil devils. Many of them are devils, they're disingenuous, and they lie to the American people on a day-to-day basis. This is point blank one of the clear messages. All of a sudden, they're outraged that Donald Trump has done it. But they're not saying anything about the fact that Iran doesn't have a nuclear weapon. They don't say anything about nothing that makes sense if a Republican does it. And I hope that the American people can see it. Now let's get to the. Don, let me go with John Fetterman real quick, and then we're gonna get to Miss Dum Dum. All right, this is him being on Fox talking about Donald Trump and AOC when it comes to the impeachment of Donald Trump strikes. Roll the clip.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says the president shouldn't be impeached because he's impulsive. What do you think of that?
No, I mean, of course, no. She knows it. I know it. We all know it. That's not going anywhere. And, you know, he's been impeached twice, and now he's still our president as well now, too. So it's not going anywhere, and I don't think that's helpful. And I think if you throw that term around, that actually diminishes what the severity of what impeachment is really reserved for.
Thank you, Fetterman. Maybe when he fell and had a stroke or whatever happened to him, he woke up from being a Democrat, because he actually makes sense sometimes. But when you just thought to yourself, wow, some Democrats may have good sense. Maybe people are starting to wake up. Let me break your bubble real quick. Put Sonny Hostin on there. I wanted to say a joke, but I can't do it because I'm trying to be a good Christian. I often say Sonny Hostin with the emphasis on. All right. Let's play her clip and listen to what she got to say. The dumbest woman on planet Earth. Joy Reid got second to her in this last race to stupidity. Roll the clip.
Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle have called into question the constitutionality of Donald Trump's actions. He bypassed Congress, potentially violated the War Powers Resolution. I believe this is certainly a clear violation of international law at the very least. Democratic House Leader Hakeem Jeffries accused the president of misleading the country as to his intentions. What do you think are the possible ramifications that President Trump could face for arguably overstepping his authority?
Well, look, constitutionally, only Congress has the power to declare war. The War Powers Act would make it seem very clear you need to have congressional approval on this. But president after president after president has launched military action without the approval of Congress. Yeah. And Congress, under Democratic and Republican leadership, has complained the president is violating the War Powers Act. This is not new. I mean, I go back. I covered Bill Clinton and the military strikes against Kosovo back in 1999. Again,
that's why I think it's more of an international law violation.
But you know, look, it's a Republican Congress right now. I don't think he's not getting any blowback from within his own party, with the exception of Tom Masson.
So what's the good of having it then if they will violate it?
Well, that's a great question. I mean,
we've been using the 2003 AUMF to authorize every military strike in about 25 years. So Congress can't be feckless and then be mad when they don't like the outcome.
Yeah. So that was after 9/11. Congress passed this authorization of military force against. It was supposed to be against Afghanistan. Yeah. For harboring Al Qaeda, and it has been used over and over and over and over again.
Let me tell you this. This is the funny thing. Like, when it comes to this War Powers Act, this is why Donald Trump, in my opinion, is brilliant, and these people are stuck on stupid, because they want to be stuck on stupid. Here's some key components to the War Powers Act, and I'm gonna tell you how I think Donald Trump did exactly what he's supposed to do and circumvented this entirely, because the president should be able to do what he did and not have to wait for Congress to do nothing. Okay, I'm just gonna read real quick. It says the War Powers Resolution of 1973, commonly called the War Powers Act, is a federal law aimed to limit the president's ability to engage in U.S. forces in hostilities without congressional approval. It was passed in the wake of Vietnam War to reassert congressional authority over war making. Right? Here's some key components. Notification requirement. The president must notify Congress within 48 hours of committing armed forces to military action. 60-day limit. The president can only keep U.S. forces in combat for 60 days with a 30-day withdrawal period, unless congressional authorization or Congress authorizes the use of force or declare war. Okay? Congressional oversight. Congress can demand the removal of troops with a concurrent resolution. Okay. So critics say this: White House has not confirmed a 48-hour formal notification yet, triggering congressional concerns. Okay? But here's also the thing. There was no truth used. No troops, boots on the ground. Were we really acting in war? Now, let me say this. Donald Trump did give phone calls to congressional leaders. I would argue that Donald Trump would say, because remember when he was on there, he said, I'm going to go back in a week or two or something to decide what I'm going to do. That was 48 hours before Donald Trump actually did the strikes. So I would argue calling and saying that you're going to communicate or giving any indication whatsoever, which he called Hakeem Jeffries and them and they time-stamped it, is sufficient before you have to make a strike. You don't have to wait for them to answer the phone and do all that. You can make a strike. Here's what happened against Soleimani. It says Trump ordered the drone strike to kill General Qasem Soleimani. Justification is that the administration claimed it was a defense action to prevent imminent action or attacks. Trump notified Congress within 48 hours via a letter. However, Democrats and critics argued the notification was vague. So no matter what he does, they are going to have a problem with it. He notified them and they go, it's vague. Well, what do you want them to do? Now look at this. Congress passed a war powers resolution in February of 2020 aimed at limiting Trump's ability to take further military action against Iran without approval. But Trump vetoed it, and Congress did not override the veto. So they tried to do the little shenanigans. Trump vetoed it anyway. So there's no exclusive, nuanced power that they now have to stop Donald Trump from doing what he's doing. If they really wanted to get something done when Biden was in office, they could have passed the resolution then, but they didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Okay?
They just do it out of the Trump.
And there's other situations that, you know, people want to articulate from other wars, the Syrian airstrikes as well in 2017 and 18. But according to my little document here, it says Trump, hold on, let me see if these go together. I think it says Trump complied with the notification provision of the War Act. Many Congress, mostly Democrats, but some Republicans too, felt Trump stretched executive authority and sidestepped congressional authorization, especially with the Soleimani strike. But if you look at what he did, you can argue whether he did it right or he did it on time or he did it formally or informally. I think Donald Trump did what was right and it would be executed flawlessly. And I think a president shouldn't have to go through the Congress that we have that gets nothing done in order to get things done on behalf of the United States of America. Point blank, period. All right?